Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today's Monday, August 28th, 2023. So this is the week. I anticipate that Stronghold Digital Mining, at the very latest, will have achieved a hash rate, a Bitcoin mining hash rate of 4 exahash, at least 4 exahash, by this Thursday, August 31st, 2023. Whether or not we're going to actually get a formal news release or press release from Stronghold Digital Mining indicating that we've reached that threshold is yet to be seen. I do suspect that if we don't hear anything this week, then certainly after the forthcoming Labor Day weekend, which would leave us basically with an update perhaps on Tuesday, that would be September. If September 1st is this Friday, the 2nd would be Saturday, 3rd Sunday, 4th Sunday, 5th. Okay, sorry, it's just hard for me to do dates like that in my head without kind of counting it out. So basically September 5th would be essentially, the most logical time that I would expect then otherwise to hear from the company confirming that, yes, we've reached 4 exahash of Bitcoin mining capacity. Now, there's something else going on. A number of large asset management companies, for example, BlackRock comes to mind, they filed Bitcoin spot ETF applications with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission sort of towards the beginning of this year. After winding its way through the process, we finally reached a milestone whereby at least certainly the BlackRock application, as well as a number of other applications, made their way to the so-called U.S. Federal Registry. They got published in the registry. And then typically that date, which if I'm not mistaken in the case of BlackRock would have been July 19th, that begins sort of like this clock time, like almost like a countdown process, so to speak. The earliest at which point the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission might give a positive approval for example, like a BlackRock Bitcoin spot ETF would be 45 days from July 19th, which if I'm not mistaken, if you do the math, I think it works out to basically Saturday, September 2nd. Please let me know if in the comments if I'm sort of on the right track with that, or if you have a slightly different understanding as to how that works. But what I'm getting at is that to the extent the SEC has finally decided to allow some of the largest, most well-respected, some of the most heavily regulated and scrutinized asset management companies like on planet Earth finally offer a spot Bitcoin ETF, the thinking is, the earliest they would likely do this would maybe be at the very end of this week. Well, not technically at the end of this week. Maybe they'll make a decision by the end of this week. And then we might hear something basically next week, maybe as early as Tuesday, September 5th. Now, I did read that there's some speculation that it may be another 6 months or so until the SEC formally gives an approval of any kind for a spot Bitcoin ETF. Maybe not. Again, this is all speculative. I believe, 45 days would be the soonest. I believe 240 days would then be the longest period of time, right? Like after 240 days, it would either have to be a yay or nay decision. There is also, it's my understanding, there's also a piece of litigation that's winding its way through the court system, whereby, if I'm not mistaken, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust essentially sued the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. And in so many words, they're basically saying, hey, the SEC should not be allowed to stop us from converting into a Bitcoin ETF. So if there were to be a ruling from a judge at any point, I suppose, regarding that litigation, that could have an immediate, or at least relatively immediate consequence or impact, as it relates to this whole question of having a Bitcoin spot ETF. Bear in mind, the reason I'm saying all this, we know for sure, absent some really surprising set of circumstances, we are practically assured that Stronghold will in fact reach 4 exahash of Bitcoin mining capacity. Not capacity, but just an actual hash rate of 4 exahash this week. I think that's really positive for Stronghold Digital Mining. I also think it's very positive, potentially positive, for the entire Bitcoin mining ecosystem, were there to be a positive policy stance from the United States Securities and Exchange Commission as it relates to allowing these spot Bitcoin ETFs to exist. So that's something else that I think is a very, big positive thing. Remember, it's not just based on my opinion. We really saw a run-up in the price of Bitcoin as well as in the price of Bitcoin mining stocks right around the end of May, early June. And a lot of that was in anticipation, or at least, it was kind of like it really had a lot to do with the likes of Fidelity and BlackRock and other large asset management companies really seeming to make a bit more progress as it relates to this whole, spot, Bitcoin ETF process. So I think that's probably going to be a very positive thing, not just for shares of Stronghold Digital Mining, but really for the entire Bitcoin mining ecosystem. So what else is going on? We do have a holiday weekend coming up, so I don't necessarily. I want to choose my words carefully here. If history is any predictor, right, and we're often warned, as I've said before, not to treat history as a predictor of future events necessarily, but it ultimately was after the Memorial Day weekend here in the United States that Stronghold Digital Mining ultimately came out with a news release, a press release, right, that basically said, hey, we surpassed the 3 exahash Bitcoin mining hash rate threshold. So, I mean, if that is any predictor, then we probably may not hear anything from Stronghold until early next week. And if that's the case, so be it. Right now, I think what I'm focused most on, and what I've started doing quite a bit of research on this weekend, was this question of, I'm taking data from 3 places here, right? I'm looking at what kind of treasury each of, I think about 12 or 13 publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies, how much Bitcoin do they have in their so-called treasury, okay? And I'm getting that information directly from Google Bard, which I'm noticing is reasonably accurate as to the dates it indicates it's getting the information from, but it's not as real world or real time as Out of Hope. But it's still a really good starting point for this research. In addition, I'm utilizing a website called yCharts, and I'm utilizing that site to track the amount of dilution. And I believe yCharts, they have a nice 5-year look back window. And so, look, I recognize that some companies in the Bitcoin mining ecosystem came public not as a result of an IPO, but because they merged with a public SPAC, and that might potentially taint some of the, the share counts and how that's all tabulated. But you know what? At least we're going to try to keep, it fair by grabbing all the data from the same source, which is yCharts. Hey, if you know of a better source for gathering that type of data, please let me know in the comments below. But I've already tabulated quite a bit of information with regard to that. Finally, I've used Google Finance to then tabulate, well, year to date, how much have these various Bitcoin mining stocks gone up, or in the case of one company, how much it's gone down. But I think putting those 3 things together might help put Stronghold Digital Mining into context as it relates to, hey, what's our stock price doing as compared to our peers? What have they done in terms of dilution? I've seen some very, very astronomical, in the 1,000+% range of dilution. But by the same token, to be fair, I've also seen companies that have really stacked a lot of Bitcoin in their treasury. So all of these data points, going to try to put them together in a spreadsheet. I already have all the raw data. It's just a matter of really putting it all together in a spreadsheet and then trying to discern a bit of a pattern from all that data, and then I'm going to share it with you to get your feedback so that we could all look at the same data objectively and then hopefully come to some clearer conclusions about what might be afflicting our stock price. I'm not 100% convinced yet that Stronghold Digital Mining, when compared to our peers, based on the data that I've already collected, that the reason we are lagging behind is because of dilution. But I'm still maintaining a very open mind, because certainly that is a legitimate factor, right? Of course it is. But let's all look at the data together. And as I said, if you have any better sources of information, I'm happy to hear them. But at least, we're using, I think, reasonably objective sources of data. Google Bard, Google Finance, and yCharts. So if you have any better suggestions, I'm open to those suggestions. Let's see, our stock price. Gosh, what has happened today? All right, so it's just after 4 o'clock. It looks like Stronghold Digital Mining was down a bit, maybe about 4% or so. And I'll tell you what, all in all, I'm not necessarily that surprised. I do see a lot of red as I scroll through the various companies right in the Bitcoin mining ecosystem that I track. I do want to take a quick peek in real time here, or relative real time, to the dashboard to just get a sense of what the hash price is. So this would be as of about 3:58 p.m. The hash price was 7.4 cents. That's phenomenal for Stronghold Digital Mining. Price of Bitcoin is under $26,000 a coin. It's $25,984. So wait, how can the hash price be really, really good for Stronghold right now? Well, it has to do with the network hash rate. It's at 323, almost 324. So again, it goes to show how it's not always just about the price of Bitcoin. It's also the network hash rate. Right now, I like what I'm seeing. So, let's take it a day at a time. We're anticipating a news release. If not this week, then certainly next week. I will be updating the dashboard as of this Thursday, August 31st, to reflect finally 4 exahash of Bitcoin, hash rate, right, that we'll finally have achieved. And I sense already that we're pretty much right there. But again, it's a matter of when does the company put out a press release, and what other potential information is included in that press release. Bear in mind, Stronghold Digital Mining has been releasing now fairly consistently monthly Bitcoin production numbers. So it stands to reason. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that maybe the company will wait until sometime next week so that 2 things can be released at one time. The first is the achievement of 4 exahash, at least 4 exahash of Bitcoin mining hash rate, and our basically our August 2023 Bitcoin mining production numbers. Okay, so there's a lot to look forward to. Let's take it a day at a time. As always, let's stay positive. Let's strive to be great, and we'll see each other again tomorrow.